So Meghan McCain apparently released some sort of memoir. Okay, she was the host of The View, the conservative host on The View. She left The View, and now she's doing something that's utterly predictable, which is she's going to go around bashing The View hosts and play the victim. And so she went into the safe space of Sean Hannity's show, and look at how dramatic she is about her experience. And let's watch it, and then I have a lot to say about it.
The last moment was actually my second day back from maternity leave, and I had very severe postpartum anxiety, and that moment triggered a panic attack backstage. I vomited in my office. It was horrible. I started crying between commercial breaks, and it was the moment that I just thought that my 4 years in an anthropological experiment in left-wing media had come to an end, because I really enjoyed my 4 years at The View in the sense that I found it a great challenge. It's a huge platform. People watch it. It's the #1 show in daytime, but you are targeted if you're the token conservative, and you are treated differently. And it's been interesting having my book excerpt released today, because people just really don't seem to be surprised at all. But there is validation in hearing it from my mouth. And I felt like it was really time for me to show my story instead of having it through the lens of the liberal media and the liberal people who were leaking from internally on the show I worked on. And I felt like it was important for mothers to hear that it's okay. You don't have to put yourself or your pregnancies in a position where you could possibly have your health or your mental health put in a position of toxicity. And I decided to leave after I became a mother, and that was ultimately the game-changing moment for me.
Meghan, you even went as far as to say you felt like you'd been slapped, and you called the work environment, toxic, direct, and purposeful hostility. And none of that looked fun to me. And I can say, in complete honesty, I've had minor little skirmishes here and there with a few on-air talent, but nothing like this at all, ever, not even close. I mean, this is like a cancerous environment.
Yeah, and it's all very personal. That's the thing, is that being a conservative woman in mainstream media is deeply threatening. Being a woman who can hold her own on a show like that proved to be ultimately threatening. So it became more and more personal the stronger the show got. That was the ironic part of it, is the better the show did. After we won an Emmy, we were on the cover of the New York Times Magazine as the most important political show in America. I felt like the toxicity got worse and worse. I actually felt like the more successful I was on The View, and the more moments I helped get them, and the more I pressed liberal candidates and liberal guests on the show, the worse it got for me backstage. And then ultimately it started spilling out on air. I went to The View, and I probably would not have survived emotionally the past, 5 years of my life, between my dad's passing and cancer and everything that I speak about in my memoir happening at The View and other things in my personal life. If it weren't for the women that I met at Fox News, Janice Dean, Kennedy, Dagan, Kat Timpf, there's actually an entire chapter about Kat Timpf and how she helped me through grief. I had a sisterhood at Fox that I lost at The View, and I know what women supporting women looks like, because I had it when I worked at Fox News, and now I know what the entire opposite experience is. And it's been difficult to open up to people like you, Sean, but I felt like it was important to say that there is real trauma that is involved when you are targeted and targeted and targeted for not voting for President Obama, for being a pro-life woman. And I don't think that people who go into liberal spaces, which is basically every other space except Fox News and media, I don't think you should be punished for it, and I don't think your personal life should be impacted. And that's unfortunately exactly what happened to me.
Meghan McCain is trying to make a national news story out of the fact that she didn't get along with her coworkers at The View. Something that was incredibly obvious to anybody who's seen even 15 minutes of a single show. Meghan, this is not a national news story. She's basing a political and ideological worldview on who's nice to her and who isn't. I will never for the life of me understand these sorts of people, and they exist everywhere. This is also, to some extent, what happened with Dave Rubin, too. The idea that I didn't really get along well with the lefties, and the lefties were meanie pants to me, so now I'm a Republican and I think universal health care sucks. That makes no sense. Here, let me explain this in a very simple way. It wouldn't matter to me if every single lefty I ever met in person was a piece of shit to me, and every single right-winger was the nicest people with open arms, sweet, accommodating, loving, happy, that would have no bearing on whether or not we should have a $15 minimum wage and unions and Medicare for all and free college and universal pre-K and an end to the wars. That has no bearing. It's not. You can't say, oh, the right-wingers are so kind and tolerant, so now I'm pro-Guantanamo Bay. What? But this seems to be what happened with Meghan McCain and what happens with many people whose brains break in this, political minefield of modern society. I think social media has a lot to do with it, generally speaking, not in the case of Meghan McCain, maybe a little bit, but more in the case with others who this has happened to. But this isn't a national news story. So The View hosts, if I'm accepting Meghan McCain's version of events, which I take with a grain of salt, her coworkers were assholes to her, so she experienced, quote, trauma. Meghan, you made $3 million a year to give your opinions on TV in front of millions of people. You're set for the rest of your life, even if you didn't work for The View, because your dad was loaded. What trauma? What trauma are you talking about? Trauma. Some people are mean to everybody. Some people have good experiences and bad experience with a variety of people throughout their entire lives. The difference is people don't try to make it a national news story and whine and moan to the country, acting like you're some sort of colossal victim. And then, listen, when she brings up I had postpartum anxiety and, so it was my second day back after maternity leave, well, then maybe you shouldn't have been there if you had postpartum anxiety. Have you considered that? That maybe you were experiencing everything in a heightened emotional state, so it's not really them that's the problem, it's you. Because, by the way, one of the instances she's really reacting to here is that Joy Behar said, after Meghan McCain got back from maternity leave, I didn't miss you. Oh, Meghan, are your fifis hurt? Did you think Joy Behar would miss you deeply? No, the issue is, if you had postpartum depression and you were feeling stuff on a heightened level, don't go back to work yet. Don't go back to work yet. She says, I had postpartum anxiety. I had a panic attack backstage. I cried. I vomited. Sounds to me like you have your own issues that you need to work out, and you need to take those issues seriously and stop blaming everybody else for those issues. That's what it sounds like to me. So it's all the toxicity of the work environment. Toxicity of what? Somebody please explain to me. What's the line between we just disagree, or even we disagree strongly, and this is toxicity? And it's traumatic. Because this is something about, and it's not just Meghan McCain. This happens a lot in modern society. And to be fair, it happens a lot with the younger generation, too. This idea that, either silence is violence or massive disagreement is actually harassment or abuse or toxicity or trauma. No. People are allowed to disagree. People are allowed to vehemently disagree. People are allowed to yell at each other in a political disagreement, and you still can't claim, it's toxic and it's traumatic and it's unacceptable and it's abusive and it's harassment. No, that's weasel. That's weasel shit. That's a way to tap out and play the victim and not address the actual substance of what was being said. So I have zero sympathy for this. And then she says, she was bullied for not voting for Obama and being pro-life. No, they disagreed with you for not voting for Obama and for being pro-life. That's it. Am I supposed to think Whoopi Goldberg is physically hurting you or Joy Behar is physically hurting you? No, they probably said things that are dickish, but so goes life. Again, the real issue to me seems to be that Meghan McCain is an emotionally unstable person. And it's not that hard to see. You can see the evidence of it even as an outsider, right? So I feel bad for her that she had postpartum anxiety. I feel bad for her that she's an emotionally unstable person. I feel bad for her that she's prone to panic attacks. I feel bad for her that she cried and vomited and all that stuff. But go take a walk. Go pet a dog. Go hang out with your kid. Don't go back to work so soon if your heightened emotional state is going to make you play the victim at any sort of disagreement or pushback. I don't buy it at all. And of course, Sean Hannity, the hack he is, willing to play up anything that says that's left-wing bad, right-wing good. And this is perfectly fits that narrative. So it's a joke. Listen, having a bad relationship with your coworkers is not a national news story. And I'm sure they have a side of the story too, where they would say, we weren't the problem, she was the fucking problem. You think we were so hard and tough in our disagreements. Look how she was. So, of course, she was going to try to do this national news tour playing the victim after being the conservative on The View. No, not buying it. Nobody should buy it. Even if you're on the right, the idea that you sort of think her version of events is the only version of events, and it was traumatic. It was so traumatic making $3 million a year giving your opinions on TV. Sorry if I'm being an asshole in this segment, but, I mean, it has to be said. Somebody has to say it, because what she's doing here is ludicrous. It is. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.